let's talk to Sky in Colorado, the Colorado Sky. Hello, Sky. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, how are y'all doing today?
Doing great. Thanks so much. What's on your mind?
Good.
Hi. So I know you all grew up religious, or at least from what I've heard. And I grew up pretty religious, and not only that, I was homeschooled. So, and I also lived in a small town, so I really wasn't exposed to very much. So as I grew older and started realizing, I started questioning my beliefs about being in the God claim and stuff, I started to realize how much inner homophobia and transphobia I had, and how many biases I had. And I've started really trying to work on changing my views and how I first think about things over the last year or so. And I've discovered the show, and it's really, really been very helpful for me, because I didn't, growing up sheltered, I didn't realize that transgender people were a thing until I was 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I only knew that non-binary was a thing until a couple months ago. I am so far behind in knowing that there are more things out there than just male and female, or boy and girl, or whatever. So I was just wondering if you all had any suggestions to help me kind of on my way to be more respectful as I'm learning, and how to become more exposed to this. So yeah, and how to dismantle those kind of phobias and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to just point out at the start that the big things stay the same unless we make little changes. It's not about going into yourself and giving yourself a belief ectomy where you can just rip out some of these homophobic beliefs and things. The truth is, you start small and you do a poor job of it, and then you do a slightly better job, and then a slightly better job. It's about kind of constantly and in a piecemeal fashion identifying these things and doing what you can, doing what you need to make those little changes. What did some of those changes look like for y'all? What is the next step, maybe?
Yeah, I think there's just so much to explore. I mean, I grew up Southern Baptist, so there's definitely these big, all the misogyny and everything else. But then it's also, it's like, why would I want to transition to female if there's so much, misogyny within the church? And I was still religious at the time, and just kind of processing. I think there's just so many things you do as far as just kind of re-examining and allowing yourself to just explore and try to read, talk to as many people as possible, talk to as many different people as possible was really helpful for me in that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having those interactions with and experiences with folks that exemplify these things that you were taught to hate so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, the idea, and this is something I've been on for a while, this idea that somehow we think we have an idea of what's right or good that is accurate, and that how we feel indicates whether or not that thing is good or bad objectively. And that's something that I know my Christian upbringing really ingrained in me, which was this idea that, if something makes me uncomfortable, or something makes me feel defensive or icky, that is the Holy Spirit telling me that it's wrong and bad. And it took a little bit of dismantling, even after I no longer believed in a supernatural power. It did take a little while for me to shift my thinking from I feel this way, therefore it is this way, into, oh, this is making me uncomfortable for some reason, and I don't know why. Let me sit in this discomfort for a little bit and really dig into it and think about it logically and see if there's a reason for it. And more often than not, that discomfort was the result of some kind of underlying bigotry or phobia that I had not actually thought about yet. And so it's just a constant process of noticing when you feel uncomfortable about something, and then not running away from that discomfort, not taking yourself out of the situation, unless you're, of course, unsafe. But instead sitting with it and saying, hey, why am I feeling this way? And is there a rational reason for it? Because if there's not, I'll bet you anything, it's just a leftover belief kind of rattling around in there that just needs to be put to bed.
Yeah, and that's definitely where I've been coming from, is like I've noticed, like, specifically my dad is very transphobic, and I didn't realize that until a few months ago when I was like, oh, okay, so the icky feeling that I feel isn't really how I think. You know, it's just what I feel, not what I think. And differentiating those two things has been really hard for me, I guess.
Yeah, long-time viewers of the show will have heard this before, but the metaphor I like to use is the idea of like an open heart surgery. You know, if we were going to apply some sort of like moral standard or like good place point system to the idea of a heart transplant, I think we would all agree that it's amazing that these like stupid monkeys in fancy surgical masks have figured out a way to take a human heart and put it into a different human's body. That's remarkable. If I had to sit and watch like video footage of that for a couple of hours, I'd probably pass out. Like, I get syncope from looking at blood. It grosses me out. That is my body's reaction. It's not necessarily, though, a good indication of what is true, what is just, what is kind, and what is right. So I'm glad to hear that you're asking these questions and that you're taking these steps. You know, I'll say that a lot of my walking away from religion and walking away from the homophobia, and honestly, the internalized and even self-directed homophobia that came with that, came through film. It came through not just interacting and meeting actual queer folks in the real world, but through understanding and viewing their stories through podcasts, through books, through movies, and these different kinds of things. And I think that educating yourself on queer culture can be a really beautiful way of gently, ever so slowly cutting away at some of these issues and some of these uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
And you're already doing that by watching this show. So thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Like, over like the course of the last few months, I've realized that I'm bisexual, and I've been starting to question my own gender, because of listening to these things and exposing myself to like TV shows and like this podcast, for example, and being like, okay, this really isn't something to be afraid of. This isn't something that's inherently bad. Let's just sit with the feeling for a minute, and then we'll come back and see, like, okay, this feels right, you know?
I love that. I love that. And yeah, honestly, at this point, like if you're starting to play around with these ideas and you're starting to realize things about yourself, I would say make sure that you're just being honest and being relaxed about it, I guess. Like when I first started, I was like very uptight and like nervous and like I need to find the answer now. And oh no, my whole life is going to change. And if I say I am this thing, then I'm stuck as this thing forever, and I have to commit to it. And really, I think everyone should question their gender and then come to a reasonable conclusion and be like, no, actually I am cis. That's cool. All right, cool. You had that conversation with yourself and that's where you landed. That's great. If you question it and you're like, oh, actually I'm something else, then equally awesome, right? But just the fact that you're having those conversations with yourself and being open with yourself and hopefully understanding as you build this new identity for yourself, give us a call. Like as you start playing around with these ideas, if you have questions, if you come up against anything you want to talk about, we'd love to hear back from you.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. This has been really helpful for me to be able to talk about this with other people.
Good.
Hey, glad to hear it. Thanks so much for calling.
Bye.
Fantastic.
Thank you. You all have.
Bye.
Take care. Via, I love what you said about the unexamined life. and about the importance of just kind of doing your own gender test. I mean, the reality is most of the folks watching this are going to be cis, and that's fine and beautiful and wonderful and valid and nothing at all to apologize for. But if you were just handed this cis identity at birth and you haven't taken a moment to investigate it, how do you know?
Exactly.